Comfrey can be a dream or a nightmare for your garden. How do I know? Because I've experienced it myself firsthand. Today will be all about the Comfrey plant, how to grow and harvest it, 3 ways to use it as a fertilizer in your garden, how to propagate it, and most importantly in my opinion, how to avoid the mistakes that I've made. Hi, I'm Valerie and welcome back to Now Gardening. Comfrey is high in potassium and calcium. With an NPK of 1.8, 0.5, and 5.3, it can be great for fruit trees and for your tomatoes and other plants when they're fruiting. In fact, since I started using Comfrey 3 years ago on a particular fruit tree that had not produced in 10 years, it has been yielding bumper crops. But before we jump into Comfrey, one of our viewers last week missed out on the garden showcase due to a technical difficulty. And I just wanted to take a moment to share his beautiful harvest photos. Thank you, Ed, and all the other viewers who participated or watched the garden showcase as we celebrated gardens around the world. Now on to Comfrey. Growing Comfrey is easy. Whether you start with seeds, a plant, or even root cuttings, Comfrey is a plant that is motivated to grow. Although it will thrive with regular watering and a loamy, well-drained soil, it will survive almost anything. Mine are in hard, clay, nutrient-poor soil. They have also survived 2 consecutive droughts, which is why they look a bit rough today. But literally, Comfrey is almost impossible to kill, which is great, right? Not always, but I'll come back to that in just a minute. First, let's move on to harvesting. Now, harvesting Comfrey isn't hard, but the leaves are a bit prickly, so if you have contact allergies, I would definitely recommend that you wear gloves when handling them. I usually harvest mine in the spring when the leaves are lush and green, which also allows them time to grow back. In the fall, I will harvest them again before they die off in the winter. Now, if you are starting out a Comfrey plant for the first time, you will want to give it the time to get established. For example, with my Comfrey plants the first year, I did not harvest them in the spring. I waited until the fall to harvest them. So we have a basket full of leaves. Now what? Well, there's 3 ways to use Comfrey as a fertilizer in your garden. The first is simply to dry and then crush the leaves and add them around the base of the plant or in the hole where you're going to transplant a plant. Here I have dried and crushed the Comfrey leaves and now I'm digging it in around my tomato plants. The second way is to add them as whole leaves to your compost. And the third way to use Comfrey? Well, it's my favorite way and it's really easy, so let me show you. So you put Comfrey in a bucket, then you add water. Now obviously, if you live in a climate that gets below freezing, you do not want to do this in the autumn. You probably just want to add those leaves to your compost bin or dig them into your soil and let them decompose over the winter. And I'm just going to put mine right here inside my cabin in this nice warm spot beside the window. This will set for several weeks. In the summer it takes less time because the sun will heat it up and help it decompose. In the winter it may have to set for up to a month. When using Comfrey tea, it can be quite powerful, so make sure that you dilute it to the amount that is best suited for your plants. For my fruiting vegetables such as tomatoes, I dilute it to about 1 part per 20, whereas for my old mature fruit trees, I can put it out undiluted. As I mentioned before, Comfrey is a great fertilizer for fruiting trees and plants since it's high in potassium and calcium. Now, if you're looking to propagate Comfrey, it's super easy to do. You simply dig up your existing plant, break off a bit of the root cutting. Now that root will actually grow into a new Comfrey plant. It's really that easy. Now, so far, Comfrey is sounding like a dream, right? Well, you might have guessed this brings me to how Comfrey can also be a nightmare in your garden. But before I go on, if this video has been helpful, please click the like button down below. Thank you. Now, a few years ago, a friend gifted me a Comfrey plant. I was super excited because I'd heard about the almost magical powers of Comfrey to act as a clay buster for hard clay soil. I had also heard gardeners raving about its effectiveness as a fertilizer in the garden. Well, as I mentioned, I have terrible soil here that I'm trying to rehabilitate. As you can see behind me, my property goes like this, and so as you can imagine, all the rain and water runoff, it creates a lot of erosion and just really kind of takes the best out of the soil. My plan was to leave it for a couple of years and then dig it up and move it to a different part of my garden. However, when I dug it up, our clay soil was so hard and the roots were so deep that I could not get it all out without it breaking. So the roots broke in one part, kind of pulled off the plant, put it aside, dug some more, found more roots. Finally, I could still see root hairs going into the soil, but I was about that deep, which takes a lot of effort, as hard as our clay soil is. So I covered the area with a black landscape cloth and left it for months. Fast forward a few months later, and I removed the black landscaping cloth and I planted a little crop. Within 2 weeks, I had 4 comfrey plants growing amongst the crop. Because here's the thing, is that each time a comfrey plant root breaks, you get a new comfrey plant. So here's what I should have done to avoid having a comfrey nightmare in my garden, and hopefully this will help you as well. Number 1, I should have planted my comfrey in its forever home. Then I would not have had this problem to begin with. So the second thing I could have done is I could have planted comfrey in a pot. That would have allowed me to harvest the root cuttings as I needed them, harvest the comfrey as fertilizer, but I would have avoided the problem of it spreading in my garden. And the third thing that it would not have affected what happened with me, but it might help you, is that always make sure that you plant the comfrey hybrid, which is called Bocking 14. This is a sterile hybrid that will not self-seed. Now this wouldn't have really helped me because I disturbed the roots and those roots grew new plants, but this will at least help you avoid your comfrey self-seeding. So I hope this will help you avoid any nightmares, and then you can only experience the dream of having comfrey and using it as a fertilizer in your garden. Have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.